Another piece of news, which I thought was interesting because it shows that companies can't just do what they want with our data, and that if there is enough public backlash, if there's enough public outcry, then companies will step down. Maybe not a company like Meta, maybe not a company like X or Twitter, but in this case, it is WeTransfer. So you probably use WeTransfer to send files. It's pretty good at that. That's all it does really. If you have a large video file, for example, that you need to send, then WeTransfer is pretty much the only game in town, unless you do something custom. So there was a backlash recently, criticism from customers after they changed their terms and services, which was interpreted as WeTransfer saying, hey, every time you send files to us, we're actually going to check out what's in there, and then we're going to use that to train an AI. So they quickly jumped out and said, we do not use machine learning or any form of AI to process content shared via WeTransfer, nor do we sell content or data to any third parties. So that's pretty definitive. I don't know why they mentioned machine learning specifically, because any form of AI will include that, because okay, I'm not going to get into the definitions there, but generative AI and machine learning is a technique within that and outside of generative AI. But anyway, they've been fairly adamant that they're not using any kind of AI, and they're not using data from their customers to train any form of AI, but we'll see. So what they initially added was a clause which said to include the possibility of using AI to improve content moderation and to identify harmful content. Okay, so they use sneaky language, which was possibility. So the thing is, if you are doing content moderation scans, that means you're scanning everything. So it doesn't matter what's going through, you're going to scan everything, because you can't just scan the bad stuff, because you don't know what the bad stuff is until you scan it. So in order to moderate what's being sent back and forward in WeTransfer, that means they need to look inside. And it sounded like they wanted to use AI to make that process efficient. And then the term said WeTransfer could use content for purposes, including to improve performance of machine learning models. Okay, that's quite specific, that enhance our content moderation policy. Again, it's interesting because machine learning has been around for a long time. So companies like Amazon is a great example of, they used machine learning to price goods and goods. So when you go on, you're given a price, and it comes from machine learning. Same with Expedia or Kayak or Skyscanner. It's all machine learning in the background and working out what the optimal prices are and acting as a market between the seller and the buyer. That's machine learning. There is not somebody in the background tweaking that manually. We've had machine learning for a long time. It's a very, I don't want to say old, because it depends on your timelines of how long AI is, but it's something that we had before generative AI. But it's a foundational technique that is used in other forms of artificial intelligence. So the fact that they use machine learning, the fact that pretty much most big companies use machine learning, they've been doing this for a long time, but people don't freak out about that because they've become so used to it. What people freak out more about now is generative AI, because generative AI, like ChatGPT, Midjourney, etc., that is relatively new, and that scares people a lot more. I wasn't aware of it, but I wonder if machine learning scared people at the time, and big data, probably people were thinking, oh my God, they're stealing all my information. They're going to use this to do terrible things against me. But I think over time, over a decade or so, people just got used to that. That's probably what we're going to see with generative AI. We're going to have a couple of years where people are saying, no, it's my information, it's my data, you cannot train on this, it's destroying the environment. All of these things that I'm sure they said about machine learning and big data, but then after a decade or so, people will get used to it. They get used to the convenience of these technologies, and generally we find something else to worry about. Went back on what they'd said, and they came out with a new statement saying, no, we don't use any machine learning or any form of AI to process content. Whether or not that's true, hard to tell. We don't know what they're doing on the inside. They may be being slippery and putting out a well-worded statement to get away with not lying. You can never lie, but you can say things that are not 100% true. But we'll see, basically. I'm surprised that they're not using machine learning if they have content moderation. So say we're not going to use any at all, seems short-sighted, because that is pretty useful technology. Courts are saying, I disagree about the use of data and training, especially creative things. They should pay people. Yes, so this is something that is being worked out. We're going to see a lot of movement here in the court case between Disney and Midjourney. So Disney is suing Midjourney because with Midjourney, you can generate Mickey Mouse doing whatever, doing terrible things. The Disney have come at Midjourney and said, okay, absolutely not. We're suing you into oblivion. They did not go for ChatGPT, interestingly, and the model, because ChatGPT has models that are trained on images too. Maybe they have better content moderation in place, so it's harder to create them, but they're definitely trained on that information. But Disney, I think, are choosing their fight, and instead of going for OpenAI, which is going to be too big a fight for them to handle, even if it's Disney, this would be a huge, one of the biggest cases ever if Disney went for OpenAI. Instead, they're going for Midjourney, because Midjourney is a lot smaller, and Disney are more likely to be able to bully them and take control of their intellectual property. So I think what will happen is we will probably have some kind of recompense or some kind of way to protect intellectual property that's being fed into an AI. It will not be laws and structures and intellectual property rules that help the small artists, though. It's going to be laws that are put in place by companies like Disney who are going to lobby for this stuff in order to protect their IP. It's not going to protect the small artists because the small artists and creatives are not the ones who are going to be able to push the agenda in the legal cases. So I think whatever we end up with is going to be protecting Disney, Universal, Paramount, etc., the big boys, and not necessarily individual creators. I think that will hold until Disney, Universal, film studios, etc., realize, oh wait, we actually want to use AI in our production. This is already happening with things, very basic things like the voice replacement. So let's say you've got Timothy Chalamet comes in for a movie, you get all of his lines, you mocapped him and you've done whatever, and then he goes off and he's working on his next movie. To get Timothy Chalamet back in to do re-recordings or to put the mocap suit on him or to reshoot a scene is prodigiously expensive. It's far too expensive. I imagine it's already stopped happening, that more and more film companies are just going to start using AI to re-record those lines and maybe re-record the scene. And we'll see that grey area basically expanding. And when Disney, Universal, etc., realize, oh, this is much cheaper, then I think they'll be on the side of AI. So it's going to be an interesting debate because right now, someone that's created using artificial intelligence cannot be copywritten, which means that it is too risky for a company like Disney to use significant AI in their creations because they could potentially not copyright what they've created, which is a nightmare for them. They no longer own it. Once they're using sufficient amounts of AI in their creations for them to worry about not owning the copyright, that's when they'll be pushing for AI content to be copywritten. And at that point, they'll probably be less bothered about what's being used to train it. I think that's the way it's going to go. It's going to be corporates versus corporates, AI companies versus entertainment companies. And then eventually, as we've been seeing with companies like the New York Times, there will be a merger and the corporations will work together. So with someone like the New York Times, yes, they're suing OpenAI, but they've also signed deals with other artificial intelligence. They actually have signed one with OpenAI, but that's too complex. But they want publishers to realize that they can actually make more money by working with the AI companies. They will, or AI companies will buy them. So we have things like Amazon. Jeff Bezos basically owns the Washington Post. He also owns a large portion of Anthropic, who create Claude. So there is a deal. They're linking the Washington Post, and it's being allowed in the Anthropic model. We're going to see more of this kind of thing. And again, this will not benefit the individual creator, will not benefit the small artist. They're the ones we need to worry about. I think they will get shafted on both sides by the large media companies, whether it's newspapers or film companies or whatever, video games, and the AI companies. So yes, I agree. There should be a way to recompense the original creator. There will be a way, but it's going to be for recompensing people like J.K. Rowling, Disney, and the big boys. The law is going to go in a particular way. This is also why we need to, as individuals, keep appraised of what's going on in AI so that we understand it and we can become part of this debate and part of this discussion. Saying my partner's doing a master's in AI and he keeps updating me on this because I'm a designer and innovator. Fantastic. That's really useful because what's happening right now, a lot of my friends are creatives and it's a bit embarrassing that I don't work in AI and I do AI stuff because I have creative friends. But the problem is that the people who don't like AI are just sticking their head in the sand and saying, I'm not going to learn about this. I hate everything to do with it. And then they come out with all the different arguments against AI. A lot of them are valid. But this is a technology that is clear. It's not going away. Pandora's box has been opened. So we need to be appraised of what is going on and how it's going to affect our livelihood. So if your partner is doing a master's and keep you updated. That's really useful. You have a personal connection who can help you there. I'm jealous. That's very handy. And part of the reason why I do these daily updates is to, answer them on the live. And I hope start to bridge the gap between fear and excitement for the future. Because we can be pessimistic about the future of AI, or we can be optimistic. The reality, the truth, as in most things, is probably somewhere in the middle. And we need to at least walk into it with our eyes open and know what's happening, so that we can try to shape it so it is not just corporations owning this, so that there is that the individual people are not shafted from both sides, but also so that we have our eyes open when it does come for jobs, etc. We need to know when this is happening and be ready for it. So that's what I'm trying to do with these daily updates and also my newsletter. These videos go onto YouTube, they get cleaned up, they get segmented, and then they have plan codes and they all go onto YouTube. So if you want to look up certain topics, you don't want to watch the whole live, then YouTube is going to be the place to do it. There's also a daily newsletter, which goes out, which includes the individual segments and the time codes, so you can jump straight to the part that you want to see as well. So you don't need to hop on the live. The live is great if you want to ask questions, specific questions, because I'll be able to answer them. But otherwise, the newsletter and YouTube are really helpful for basically keeping up to date. Cool. This is very interesting. Thank you. Always big businesses keeping the benefits. Yeah, they set the rules. So right now, the legal systems are way behind when it comes to artificial intelligence. All policymakers, governments, laws, all of these old structures, they will go pre-AI. Some of them are still catching up with the internet, and AI is moving really fast. So we have things like the EU AI Act, which is coming in, is being enacted in August. I forget when exactly, about a month away from now. That was written primarily 2 years ago. AI has come a long way in 2 years, but it takes a long time to get these things ready and signed off and get everyone agreed on them. But by the time it comes out, it's kind of useless because it is based on old technology. I don't know what the solution to this is, but law and governments and policies, they are going to change a huge amount over the next few years. But the people who are going to be pushing those changes are not going to be the individuals. It's going to be the corporations. It's going to be AI companies. It's going to be people like Disney. It's going to be governments, etc. And they're going to be setting the rules. So we need to keep an eye on them and make sure that the decisions they come to don't screw us too much, ideally.